Struggling with a chaotic mind? This isn't just ancient wisdom. It's the Buddha's precise step-by-step path to ending suffering and finding unshakable inner peace. Starting today. Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into the Buddhist path to inner peace. But I want you to think of this less as a religion and more like a practical training manual for your own mind. It's a step-by-step guide for cultivating a real, lasting sense of well-being. So let's get started. It's a question I think a lot of us ask ourselves. In a world that just feels so chaotic sometimes, how do we actually find a stable center? Well, this ancient path inscribed in the Tripitaka, or the Pali Canon, offers a surprisingly clear step-by-step approach. And it all begins by looking directly at a fundamental truth of our experience. This quote really gets to the heart of it. The whole path starts with one core observation. Life involves suffering. And look, we're not just talking about big major tragedies. It's also that subtle background noise of dissatisfaction, the stress that comes from just wanting things to be different than they are. The moment we can acknowledge this reality, we can actually start to do something about it. So where do we even begin? You might think it starts with some complex meditation, right? But nope, it's actually something way more fundamental. Before we can even begin to train the mind, we need to build a stable, solid foundation for it to rest on. And that starts with giving and morality. The very first step is dana, which means generosity. Dana, or giving, is considered the easiest way to condition the mind. It requires little time and effort, resulting in a refined, clear and light mind, achieving a certain level of ease. True giving is giving with sincere goodwill to the recipient, without expecting anything in return either directly or indirectly, from the recipient or from others. The purer the giving, the greater the results. Now, why on earth would we start with giving? Well, because it directly pushes back against our mind's natural tendency to grasp and cling to things. Think of selfishness as a tightly clenched fist. Every single act of generosity, no matter how small, helps to gently open that fist, creating a sense of abundance instead of scarcity. Giving is therefore considered the best starting point for developing the mind. Start with small giving, such as leftover items, spare change, knowledge, assistance with labor, or even forgiveness. As the mind becomes more refined, greater giving will follow. This will gradually refine the mind, make it clearer and lighter. Life will become increasingly blissful and light. To really understand how deep this practice can go, there's this incredible ancient story about a king named Vasantara. In his quest to perfect generosity, he literally gave away everything. Not just his wealth and his kingdom, but in this ultimate symbolic act of letting go. He even gave away his own children. It's a powerful story for sure, meant to show the profound level of non-attachment that's possible. Okay, so once you've started cultivating that generous heart, we build on it with what's called Sila, or morality. Now this isn't about a bunch of rigid, strict rules. It's much more about a compassionate training in just being harmless. By choosing not to do things that cause harm, we create this baseline of inner peace, and we free our minds from the heavy burdens of guilt and remorse. And this morality gets really practical through these 5 precepts. These include 1. Abstaining from killing animals. 2. Abstaining from stealing. 3. Abstaining from sexual misconduct, that is, abstinence from violating the beloved possessions of others. 4. Abstaining from telling lies with the intention of causing others distress, damage, or loss of benefits that they should receive. 5. Abstaining from drinking alcohol, which will cause a loss of mindfulness and self-control. The best way to think of them is like inner guardrails for your mind. Keeping the precepts can be done without any effort. You just need to be careful not to abuse them physically or verbally. And because keeping the precepts requires consistent long-term effort, it requires more effort than dana, or giving. So the fruits of the practice are more profound. The reason why observing the precepts can refine the mind is because most precepts, especially the 5 precepts, were established to prevent physical or verbal expressions that respond to the power of defilements. Therefore, each violation of the precepts causes the mind to become coarser and harsher, in accordance with the defilements that dominate it. The more and more precepts are violated, the more the mind becomes coarser and harsher, leading to increasingly severe offenses. This, in turn, leads to an ever-increasing cycle of coarseness and harshness, creating a never-ending cycle of accumulation. Once the precepts are observed, these defilements lessen their influence on the mind, and their power gradually weakens, resulting in an ever-increasingly refined mind. When you refrain from harm, you protect your own mind from fear. When you're honest, you build genuine self-respect. When you avoid intoxicants, you keep your mind clear. See, each one isn't just about protecting others. It's about directly shielding your own mind from all the agitation and regret that harmful actions always stir up. And this is exactly why that foundation is so important. Just think about it. A mind that's weighed down by guilt is like choppy water. You can't see anything clearly beneath the surface. But a mind that has integrity, it's calm, it's settled. And those are the perfect conditions for the deeper work that's about to come. All right, so we've laid the groundwork. The foundation is solid. Now, we get to the really active part, training the mind. This is where we learn how to gather all of our scattered attention and develop a really powerful, focused calm. And this practice is known as Samatha, or meditation. But here's a super important piece of advice before we dive in. So many of us try to force concentration, right? We try to muscle our way through it, but that just creates more tension. The real secret is to be relaxed, to let go of what you think is supposed to happen, and to practice with a gentle persistence, not with forceful control. So what is samatha, or meditation exactly? Well, it's just the formal name for developing concentration. The goal here is really simple: to unify the mind. We train it to stay with just one thing, like the feeling of the breath, until it becomes so still and absorbed that all that usual mental chatter just fades away. And what's left is this profound silence and calm. A mind with defilements is like water mixed with dust and dirt. When the water ripples, sediment inevitably rises up, leaving the water turbid. The same is true for a mind with defilements. When it sways, it becomes turbid with defilements, making the mind coarse and rough, not refined, preventing the happiness it deserves. The mind in a normal state is constantly swaying. Meditation, or samatha, involves unifying the mind, focusing on a single point to keep it from swaying. It's like keeping rippling water still. When the water is still, it doesn't take long for the sediment to settle, making the water clear. Similarly, when the mind is still and unswayed, defilements inevitably settle, because the mind does not grasp at anything that would cause defilements to appear. So the mind is refined, clear, joyful, peaceful, and cool. A mind in concentration is in a more refined state than the mind of giving and observing the precepts. Therefore, it brings greater happiness than giving and observing the precepts. Spreading loving kindness is also a form of meditation. This is a meditation that uses all beings as a spiritual anchor. It's a feeling that isn't directed toward anyone in particular. It's called apamaniya, loving kindness, which means it extends without limit. Alternatively, you can extend loving kindness specifically to a specific person, but the benefits are less than apamania loving kindness, because the mind isn't as open. Spreading loving kindness not only involves meditation, but also directly purifies the defilement of anger. Because loving kindness and anger are opposite states of mind, like ice and fire, it's highly recommended for those prone to anger to regularly cultivate loving kindness to calm their minds. As that concentration gets deeper and deeper, the mind can enter these really profound states of absorption called the jhanas. These are basically progressive stages of tranquility. You move from these initial states filled with joy to a powerful one-pointed focus. And eventually you land in a state of pure, unshakable balance and clarity. At this point, the mind becomes incredibly powerful and clear. Okay, so we've built the foundation, we've calmed the mind, now what? Now we use that calm, powerful mind as an instrument. This is the stage of Vipassana, or insight, where we turn that sharpened attention toward reality itself, to see its true nature. Here is a really great analogy. That a whole concentration practice we just talked about, Samatha, or meditation, it's like sharpening a knife. You take your scattered, kind of dull mind, and you patiently hone it until it becomes stable, sharp, and super effective. And then Vipassana, or insight, that's the moment you pick up that perfectly sharpened knife and you use it. You use that clear, concentrated mind to cut through all the layers of confusion and delusion that normally cloud our vision, letting us see things not as we wish they were, but exactly as they are. And what does this sharpened mind see? It sees this fundamental truth directly. Anicca vata sanhara, simply put, everything that arises will pass away. Our thoughts, our feelings, our bodies, the world around us. It's all in a constant state of flux. And this isn't some philosophical idea you have to believe in. It becomes a direct personal observation. Now, to really cultivate this insight, meditators use some pretty powerful practices. A classic one is the contemplation of the body's true nature. This involves visualizing the body's entire journey from vitality through the natural processes of decay after death, all the way to a skeleton, which is a basic truth of life that will happen to everyone. Now, I know that sounds morbid, but the point isn't to be gloomy. It's to directly confront the reality of impermanence, and to loosen our deep attachment to our physical form. By starting with this approach, you may be able to let go of some of your attachment to things. So it's a good start. And when you are mindful, observing the changes in things, especially the changes in your own body and mind, time and time again until all doubts are gone, you will discover the truth through your own wisdom, without having to rely on the beliefs of others or the scriptures. You will realize through your own wisdom that things are always changing, are impermanent, and that nothing is truly within your control. Eventually, your mind will let go of all attachment, because you clearly know that there is nothing that can be clung to. Then your mind will be free from all bondage and experience a happiness like never before. It is a happiness that comes from letting go, not from clinging. Vipassana, or insight, is more effective than samatha or meditation because when compared to water contaminated with dust and dirt, samatha or meditation purifies the water by allowing it to settle, thus purifying the upper layers of the water or the conscious mind. However, these sediments or defilements do not disappear. They remain dormant in the subconscious, known as anusaya defilements, waiting to manifest again in the future when the opportunity arises, provided the right conditions and environment are present. Vipassana, or insight, with each step of attaining the path and fruition, is like filtering the water, Through increasingly finer filters, dust, dirt, and defilements in the water or mind are permanently removed. Therefore, they are never able to manifest again no matter what happens. It's like water without impurities. No matter how much you shake, swirl, or stir it, the water remains pure and clean. Vipassana, or insight, therefore, purifies the mind, creating a truly pure and clean state, both conscious and subconscious. This is the highest goal of Buddhism and the highest level of Buddhist methods of mind development. So this whole path we've been on, given, morality, concentration, wisdom, it has all been leading to this. We've now arrived at the ultimate goal, the final destination of all this mental development, the state known as Nibbana or Nirvana. Now, the definition of Nibbana or Nirvana is absolutely crucial. A lot of people mistake it for some kind of heavenly paradise, right? But it's actually a state you can realize right here in this life. The word itself literally means to extinguish, like blowing out a candle. And what gets extinguished? Those inner fires of greed, hatred, and confusion that cause all of our suffering. When those fires go out, what's left is a profound and lasting peace. And you know what's amazing? The result of this incredible liberation isn't some kind of selfish escape. It actually blossoms into this immense compassion. Just look at the Buddha's own vow. The natural impulse of a mind that's truly free is to help others find that exact same freedom. The journey inward turns into a journey outward to benefit everyone. So we've walked through the entire map from a simple act of generosity all the way to the complete end of suffering. This path has been laid out for thousands of years, a practical guide for literally anyone to follow. So the only real question left is, what's your first step? Subscribe to find unshakable peace. Which step will you start today? Share your thoughts below.